Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Read and Write with Natasha. So, today I have with me a poet for the first time. And since 2015, Virus the Poet has been captivating audiences with raw emotion and thought provoking poetry, tackling everything from family to society's biggest challenges. His bestseller, Poetry is Motion, Mind, Body, and Soul, hit number one in 2023, cementing his impact in the literary world. He's a performer, a writer, and a speaker. He uses digital platforms to inspire and empower, breaking boundaries with his unique storytelling. All right. So, Virus, hi. Nice
Hi,
to meet you today, and I'm
you
so
as
happy
well.
to have my first poet on this podcast. So first, I actually want to talk about your pen name, Virus the Poet.
Sure.
Why this pen name?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it. My name is Viral Gore. So if the viral infection is worldwide known. It's in the dictionary and it means virus. So I just took that negative connotation of virus and flipped it into a positive. And so that's where the poetry comes into place. So now virus, the poet, it just makes a flip on the viral infection.
Hmm, I like it. So why poetry? I mean, what made you interested in poetry,
Yeah.
and are you doing this full time? Full time?
Yeah, so poetry for me is just an avenue. It's a art. It's a channel of expression, right? So, I was always interested in music and writing and drawing as a child. I was very into the arts, and so as I was growing up and going through life's journeys, you kind of find different avenues to express yourself, and whether that's painting, drawing, writing, singing, rapping, whatever the case may be. For me, I just happened to stumble upon poetry going to university and high school, and that kind of just seemed to be the outlet that resonated with me the most, where I can kind of spill out my feelings, but doing it in a rhythmic way and also make a positive impact on those listeners, watchers, or readers.
Hmm. And are you doing this full time?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm definitely a full-time poet. So I perform regularly. I do a lot of speaking engagements, and of course, I continue to write and try to produce more and more books.
Hmm. So I think you're the first full-time poet I've met. So I'm curious how you manage to monetize this because first,
Yeah.
as we know, people I think read more fiction and nonfiction than poetry, and the fact that you managed to do this full time is admirable. So I wanna know your secret. How did you do it?
Yeah, sure. So, it's a lot of hustling for sure. It's like
Okay.
any other business you have on your own. You got to boots on the ground. You gotta build a lot of relationships with different cafes or publicists, different publishing houses, just to get your name out there. And of course, a lot of grants. When you're working with different agencies and even government with the government, you do have to go through that process of grants, and that's how you get funded a lot of time. It's not easy. So I definitely tried. At one point I was doing it full time. Now it's kind of in between. I'm looking at other avenues of generating some income. Of course, the starving artist thing is a real quote. So at one point when I did start, I wasn't full time always, right? I did have a full time job, and I was doing it more as a passion, as a hobby, and that developed into something that was more um, you know, um, full time and fun to do because it is my passion. But yeah, it's just continuing to build relationships and try to pitch um, any engagements, and also doing freelancing on training on writing, on how to do
Mm.
poetry. So a lot of people are interested in how to do it and what to do and where to start, and so that's another avenue that you could take.
And how do you do the training? Online or universities or
Yeah,
how do you?
it's both. It's both. So definitely sometimes it'll be virtual, sometimes it'll be one-on-one, sometimes I like to do at libraries where there's quiet rooms and kind of a teaching area. And so it depends on, the engagement, how many people are interested, and where we're gonna do it, right? Location matters. So that all encompasses.
Hmm. And what's the people's appetite for poetry these days, especially with the short attention span and the TikTok, or
Yeah.
maybe actually TikTok increased interest in poetry. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think social media definitely reduced the attention span. So that's why
Okay.
all my poems and videos are 2 minutes or less, ideally, because I'm
Mm,
well aware of the attention span is not there. And, I don't think anyone wants to sit there and listen to a whole lecture, right? They want something digestible, quick, understandable for the most part, and they can move on. And so, like you said, with TikTok, it's opened the door for much more poets and poems to be absorbed and soaked in. So I think that's great. But again, I'm still very cognizant of the attention span. So I do tell my listeners, watchers, readers, just if you're going to do it, again, try to keep that in mind. 2 minutes or less, I think, is a good sweet spot because you get in, you give them what they really need to listen to or hear or watch, and then you get out. And so, also, poetry is such a heavy thing. You need time to let it resonate and soak into your mind. And
mm,
so, you can't, for me personally, I don't want a long 2, 3, 4 pages of a poem because it's a lot to take in as it is. So, for me, again, it's one page, half page, even maybe a couple blurbs, a couple lines that really are impactful. So you can do a lot with condensing it.
hmm. So do you use social media to promote your poetry and how?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, marketing is the most important thing, especially for a poet, when it's not their full time. Like it wasn't for mine for a long time, so I had to use, built my own website, and I had, of course, Instagram, Facebook, all the social media platforms, YouTube, and I get it, right? Like for a long time, I didn't want to be on camera. I'm not really a fan of being on camera because I'm not trying to be famous. I'm not trying to get my face out there. I'm trying to let my words resonate with the masses. So it's really about what you're reading, what you're watching, and I try to be as creative as possible and put videos and poetic pictures out so that people can absorb it in the way that they feel is best for them. And again, even at my shows, I used to say, close your eyes and open your ears because the idea is not for you to see me, it's to hear me and listen to the
Hmm.
words that I'm trying to say.
So do you do like TikTok videos where you read poetry or reels, or how do you do
Yeah,
that?
I haven't done too much. I've done a few. Again, I'm still trying to figure out what the best is for me from a personal standpoint of how comfortable I am on camera, but also how I can best share my poetry with the world. And sometimes social media, it's too much, right? It's really quick. It's quick filter and go, right? So I definitely do use it still. It's just not my main focus.
What's your main focus?
My focus is more of an educational standpoint. So I want to be in libraries, I want to be in Congress rooms, I want to be in places and rooms that books and reading is important. Social media is not necessarily that, right? Social media is absorbing videos and pictures, which is great still because I do have
Mm.
that. I do create poetic pictures and videos for sure for my poetry, but that's not where I'm trying to go.
So what's the day-to-day like for a poet?
Day to day, it's really just creating anywhere you go, living life. So I think the first thing is living life, right? You got to live every day. You got to have life experiences to talk about. So you can't just sit in a room and write nonstop because you got to go out there and live. And so, I took a hiatus. COVID was a really good, I mean, it was a bad time, but it was good in terms of it forced everyone to take a stop and a reset. And so for me, you couldn't even really live life. So you really had to learn about yourself a little bit more about how you're going to manage yourself in, captivity, so to speak. And so that gave you another outlet, or gave me another outlet of how to write and what to write about and what's going to impact the greatest. And so the day to day is really living life through the course of your life, just, interacting with friends, family, doing your hobbies, going to school if that's what you do, even going to work if that's what you have, and then writing about it and writing how you're feeling and what it's not really about me, but if I'm going through something, I'm sure someone of the 8 billion people on the planet are going through something similar, if not the exact
Mm.
same. So, there's someone in the world that has been feeling the exact same, and you could be that voice for them.
And I'm very fan of poets and poetry, and I'm just curious, what's people's reaction when you tell them, when they ask you, what do you do? And you tell them I'm a poet.
Yeah.
How do people react to that?
Most people say, "Oh, I never met a poet. I don't even know anything about poetry." And
Okay.
I said that, yeah, that's funny. I usually say you probably do listen to poetry because if you listen to rap or any songs, a lot of that is poetic. It's just made into musical form. And
Mm.
so people don't really realize that. They're like, oh, just music or rap. But poetry is an extension of that, right? It's the kind of the foundational basis of that musical talent, because it's lyrics and there's a message around it, behind it. And so I just kind of strip away the musical element, and I stick to just the words. And I do add the musical element in terms of cadence and rhythmic scheme into it, so that there is a kind of a flow when you're listening, watching, or reading my poetry. But yeah, that's kind of the initial reaction, is like, you're a poet, and a lot of times it doesn't match the face, or what their idea is of me, and then adding poetry is just
Mm.
another layer
Interesting.
of me, right? And so people don't really take that in all the time.
Like, how does a poet look like?
I asked the same question. I'm not sure, but I think it's the traditional, a little bit more of a nerdy look, glasses maybe, standing,
Okay.
collar shirt. This is what I've been told, is that I think they have that traditional old school mentality of what a poet looks like, versus today it's a little different.
Hmm. So, in terms of modern poets now,
Yeah.
who do you like and who do you follow, and who do you think people who are still making poetry alive? Like, you think of like Mary Oliver or Emily Dickinson or whatever, and now what is the equivalent in this
You know,
era?
To be honest, since you mentioned it, since TikTok and the more poets have been kind of coming out the woodwork, it's so hard to pick just one. I think a lot of them, when I come across, are so good. Like, there's some I listen to and I'm like, wow, I wish I can write something like that. That sounds really good, and it's captivating, and it really pulled me in. But you have a lot of famous poets around the world now, Amanda Gorman and Rupi Kaur, and there's so many now. That's just two off the top of my head. Humble the Poet, but it's I can't just pick one, to be honest with you, because I can get inspiration from a lot of people that are doing poetry, whether they're new to it or they've been doing it for years. It's really about what they're saying and the message behind it, and how I interpret it and how it impacts me at the end of the day.
So, when you write your poetry, do you just sit and write, or do you wait until the inspiration strikes?
I used to sit and write sometimes to kind of force it, but as I've grown, I've learned that it's kind of best, for me at least, to just wait till you feel that passion, that motivational spark to write. Or what I used to do, and I kind of still do it, is that if I'm driving or experiencing what life has to offer, then I will put a voice note on my phone, about what I want to say, or the message, and kind of some of the lines, and I'll go back to it, and I'll sit down at my desk and start writing and work off that. So it really depends. Sometimes you do have to force it, because there's writer's block is a real thing, and so you do have to find a way around it. But for me, it's really wait till I get inspired, either with an experience, a word, a conversation, a breakup, anything that's impactful or that's made some sort of impression on you.
Hmm. I'm curious about the the actual tools that you use to capture your creativity. There is this famous story that I read in Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, which is like this famous poet. Like in the 1900, she was working in the farm, and the minute
Mhm.
she has the idea, she would run all the way to her house to. I guess back then there
Yeah,
were no phones, to
right.
write it down, because she was worried that the idea would go to someone else.
That's funny.
So she had to quote unquote catch it by the tail.
Sure.
And so, how do you catch ideas? So you said you use voice. Like, I'm just gonna go
Voice
into the
notes.
weeds.
Yeah.
So you just use WhatsApp? Like, what
I'll
is
use I'll use like voice notes on. I have an iPhone, so I use the voice note. Also,
the voice app?
yeah,
So
the
you
voice.
open the voice app. Okay.
Yeah, the voice app, I'll use that. I'll use the memo pad on your notes on your iPhone. I have the memo pad. So if I'm like in the train and there's no service, and you don't want to talk, and you just type. Other times I'll be sitting on my computer and I'll have an idea, and I'll just open up a Word document and start writing. But usually right now the phone is kind of in your hand, so you can do it right away. So at that point, to that woman that just ran to her house, you don't have to do that, right? My phone's in my hand. I can just go to the memo app or voice note and type away, so I don't lose that thought. So I think that's good for me right now.
And do you have a central place where you gather all these like random thoughts and then you come back to them, or they're
Uh,
just scattered?
when I first started, I was very organized. Now they're all over my desktop. It's just
Yeah.
scattered like a,
Yeah.
a Jackson Pollock. But yeah, you put try to organize it in a way that works for you and go back to it. And then I do have to clean it up for, putting it, polishing it up for the book. So that was a process in itself. But yeah, right now it's kind of scattered. I definitely do have to get to back to organizing it somewhat.
Great. All right. So what's your poetry about?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So poetry is motion, mind, body, and soul. Um, the overlaying theme of my poetry has always been relatability. At some point in your life or the lives of those that you know have gone through or have witnessed or observed what I'm speaking about, whether that's life experiences, love, breakups, heartbreak, the pitfalls of growing up in a crazy world, social media, technology advancing. I touch on an array of topics. It's not just one specific topic. And that's how I like it because life is not about one thing. Life is about everything. And so for me, I try to just capture what has impacted me, what has affected me, what has influenced me, whether that wasn't a personal experience or that was an experience I've witnessed or observed from afar or even up close, but that just didn't happen to me. All right, so that's why I tend to share, and when I do share, a lot of people do like it because again, they didn't realize. A lot of people don't realize that other people are going through the same, similar, or if not the same things like heartbreak, right? A lot of people go through heartbreak, but when you're in it, you think, oh, no one's going through this. I'm the only one, and I'm the one that's suffering. And then when they read one of my poems about it, they realize that they're not alone, and there's a way out, and they can become a better version of themselves, and they can heal from that. So, that's what I try to do. Again, the overlaying theme of the book and my poetry in general is relatability.
Hmm. So you hit the bestseller list in, was it
2023.
2050? And yeah, and here my notes in 2023. How did that happen?
Um, Pure luck, I think. Pure luck, yeah. I've been at this for 10 years,
Okay.
so professionally at least. And, I just continue to put out content, continue to put out poetry, continue to put out poetic videos, continue to put out poetic pictures, and continue to do speaking engagements and going on open mics if I need to. And when I travel to different cities, try to book a gig so that I can continue to reach different audiences, different people from different walks of life that would find solace in my poetry.
Hmm. So how do you book these gigs? Do people find you online or do you approach them? How do you get all of these
Yeah.
speaking engagements?
Yeah, both ways. So sometimes they'll reach out to me on social media and say, "Hey, we'd love to have you come do a speaking engagement and talk about your book or share some couple poems." And other times, if I'm going to a new city, like when I was going to Miami, I reached out to one of those venues that have poems, poets out there, and reached out to them and say, "Hey, I'm in your city. I'd love to come and perform and share the stage." And so, I think a lot of places are looking for talent to come reach out to them because sometimes it's hard to find talent that, especially with talent that's willing to perform publicly or step on any stage or even do any speaking engagements. So sometimes you got to present yourself.
So so usually when you read poetry, do they actually pay you for reading poetry or you just make money from selling your books?
So in the beginning, it was definitely not paid.
Yeah.
You're starting out. So if you did get paid, it was very low, 20, 30, $50 maybe. And then as you get a little more credible, you have a little bit more of a following. You're a little more polished and professional in your appearance, your approach, how you're doing things. Then you could start saying, hey, there's a fee for this. And some venues you have to negotiate. And again, you have to look at the long-term goal. It's not about the quick money grab because that would be easy, but it's probably not even going to be a lot of money, right? So sometimes you do it for the look and you say, hey, I once I get on this platform, I have a lot more eyes and ears that I would have never had before. And you got to take that as, okay, that's my payment, that's my
Hmm.
compensation. And then hopefully you can do something with that new audience that you've curated, whether that's getting an email list together or social media following. But also with my poetry, I also sell merchandise, right? I sell hats and shirts and different things.
Mm,
And so, I try to broaden the horizons with not just books because I know, especially in the social media world in this era, a lot of people don't read, right? They read on their phone. And so I try to cater to different things. Hey, this is wearable art.
interesting. So Gen Zs, how are they doing in terms I've been reading this and I talked with other guests on the platform and they say because of social media, Gen Zs are now reading paper books
Oh,
because
wow,
they're
okay.
tired of
Right.
looking at their phone. And
Sure.
that's why, at least here in the US, like Barnes and Noble is expanding. I think they just announced opening, like, I don't know how many, like dozens of new stores across
Okay.
the country. And because of the push of by TikTok and BookTok and all
Sure.
of that, and because Gen Zs are back to like vintage, like
Right, right.
to reading actual paper books. Have you witnessed that? Have you experienced that? Any
Um,
thoughts on it or?
Yeah, I think it's a mix. I think it's a blend. I think again, we're in the social media world, so a lot of people still that's their main way of getting new news or information, and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube are probably the main avenues that people even hear about what's going on in the world, right? And so to hear that people are going back into the bookstores is great. Because there's a need for that. I think a lot of there's a social media fatigue where I think
Mhm,
even Gen Z is kind of sick of being on their phone constantly. Like I was lucky, I'm born in '87, so
mm,
I was born and raised before social media, and then when social media came in, so I was able to see the benefits and cons for both sides. And so, my generation, the millennials they always say it's kind of the best generation because we've had the best of both worlds. But I think the new generation just never had the old ways, right? So they don't even know what life is like before social media. And I think with the impact and the awareness of mental health, I think a lot more people are aware that being on your phone or on technology constantly is actually doing more damage. So picking up a physical book is just helping get back to kind of the basis. Like if
mm,
people have trouble sleeping, it's usually because they're on their phone. They have that blue light at their face. But if you pick up a book and you read it for maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you probably end up falling asleep and probably have a better sleep than you would if you were on your phone and then go to sleep. So I think a lot of people are realizing, podcasts help a lot that speak to these topics. I myself listen to a lot of these podcasts. It's just more awareness, more education around that. And why I think that's why Gen Z is going kind of like you said, vintage, because they realize that, hey, I want to experience that way of living. I was never born into that. I was born into technology. So now I want to know
mm,
what life is like outside of that.
hmm. So you're a hustler, right? You've been doing a lot of hustling, and I admire that. I'm a hustler too. So I'm
Thank you.
curious what marketing endeavors work the best in terms of ROI.
Yeah, so there's a lot of trial and error. I'll be honest, there's a lot of trial. There's social media, of course. You can pay for, sponsorship pages on Facebook or Instagram or all the social platforms and see if that helps. You can curate an email list, which is always a little more personal. Again, people have to sign up for that. So if they're interested, sign up for their email subscription list, and then you can reach out to them directly and promote your merchandise or book or product or whatever you're selling. The other way is, of course, word of mouth is a big one. But it's again, I think for me, because I'm a hustler, I try all avenues. I don't shut off one. If one works, great. I'm not just gonna solely I'm still going to expand it because I want it from all different avenues, right? Not just one. What I found works best, of course, is word of mouth works absolutely best. That's just in general. But then you try to reach out to maybe audiences that you're not necessarily be in contact with, right? And that they don't know you exist. And sometimes they're a little more curious. For me personally, it's always been I get more support from non-friends and family, from those that
Mm,
don't know me, that are I'm a total stranger to, because really that's all they know me for. And so I think for me, I try to focus on that group more.
hmm, interesting. Um, so why are you like it's not an easy life, the hustling and
Yeah.
why are you doing that? And why not like just get a 9 to 5 job and call it a day?
Yeah, I had a 9 to 5. I had, several 9 to 5s over the course of time for sure. So it's not that I don't want one. It's just right now I think because there's a focus on the book and I'm trying to promote it a little bit more, there's an emphasis on the passion I have for it. And to be honest, I hate the word passion because when people ask, "Oh, what are you passionate about?" And I always say, passion means what would you do today if money didn't exist and you
Yeah.
love doing it? That's what passion is, right? Something you would do consistently for free, even before you even got any money from it, and enjoyed doing it. Like I love playing basketball. I don't get paid for it. I'm too short. I'm not gonna be
Mm,
a professional NBA player, but I still love playing the game. I do it for the enjoyment of it. If I make some money from it, then great, that's a bonus. But I still want to keep myself grounded and humble and never lose the love I have for what I'm doing because now money interfered in that. And so I think that's important for me.
Hmm. Uh, so what do you have in mind, or planned for your next work? So you have one book published,
Yeah.
correct? Which
Yeah.
is the Poetry in Motion.
Yeah.
What do you have in the works?
Yeah, so I'm working on volume two. So Poetry is Motion, Mind, Body, and Soul was the first book. I am working on Poetry is Motion volume two. So that'll be a continuation of the book series. Hopefully to create a little more social media posts and I love doing poetic pictures, so I might put out a picture book. Basically, it's a poetic picture book, and so that was
Mm,
sent around
nice.
all my poems that have pictures associated with the poems. And if you go on my Instagram or any of my social media pages, you'll see that when I post some pictures, there's a poem captured inside the picture, and it relates, right? And so that's how I like to create it. And so that's an idea in the mind. Of course, I'm making another album. I do already have one album called Poetry is Motion, Mind, Body, and Soul on Spotify and on all DSPs. And so I would implore you to explore that. um and yeah, just continue to create and put it out and see where it takes me, right? You can't control every aspect of your life, so you control what you can and you let God handle the rest.
Did you self-publish?
I did not know. I have a publisher for this book, Publishing, which is great. They're based out of Vegas. They came through in the ninth hour and they helped me put this dream into fruition, which was excellent. I appreciate them very much. And so I'll hopefully continue to work with them. I was toying around with the idea of self-publishing, and that was I was gonna do it. It was a little daunting to me because there's so much involved, and even when I got with my publisher, I realized how much was really involved. First, it's not only about the poems, right? The poetry is the easy part. You got to put together the book. You got to put together the chapters and how it's gonna flow. Even the type of paper you use, the cover, the art, the stem of it, what's gonna be on the back. So there's so many intricacies on the business end, on the business side, of how you're gonna present your art, right? You can't just
Yeah.
create a piece of poem and say, here to the world. Sometimes you can, but if you want to present it in a more of a professional package, you need some experts to come in and help you with that. And so I was lucky enough to work with them on this book.
How did you find them? How did you find your publisher?
They found me.
Oh, really? How?
Yeah, yeah. I was on I believe it was a platform called Alignable. And again, it was just one of those platforms you share your business or what you're trying to do. Um and I found her on it. So I think I followed their page, and then she reached out to me else, and then we started having a conversation and it went from there. It was great.
And the platform is only for poets?
No, no, it's a business platform for anything, anyone. Yeah, it's for people that have interior designing businesses or IT consulting services. It's just
Mhm.
it's just a business. It's like a business Facebook, I guess.
It's like is it a marketplace or
It's not a marketplace. Like I said, it's called Alignable. You can Google it. It's more like Facebook for business.
interesting? Isn't that LinkedIn? But
Yeah,
I guess
The LinkedIn's a little more corporate now, so it's caters to more people that want to connect directly versus put this whole presentation out there like that, like LinkedIn.
Interesting. So you you mentioned Instagram, and then it's not the kind of newish phenomena of poets sharing their poetry in an Instagram post, and I think it started with I think she's actually Canadian. Um, I think she started that trend. Um, when she started it with Instagram poets, and then it
Uh,
turned into a book. Do you see that kind of the new trend of poetry where you have Instagram poets? I'm actually gonna Google now as we speak
Yeah.
Instagram poets and see what we get.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, like I said, since TikTok and Instagram, to me, my preference is definitely TikTok. Since that has come out and Instagram, there's definitely more poets that have come about. And it's the same thing with photographers, right? There was professional photographers that had all these cameras and
Yeah.
and now you have people on Instagram and TikTok that are also now photographers or poets. I don't think
Yeah.
that one is better than the other. I think before social media, those that were passionate about it went out of their way to show that, hey, I'm a poet or I'm a photographer. Now with because of social media, it's opened up the door for anyone, even people that have, let's just say I'm a 16-year-old in high school, having different feelings and thoughts, and now I have a way to express it, and it's going to impact. So I don't think it matters, to be honest. I think who's consistent, one, who's continuously doing it. Some people do it for the love of it, others do it to get famous or get some recognition, and others will do it because they had a thought as a one-time thing and that was it. So it really depends on what you're looking for, who you're looking at, and what kind of messages they share.
Hmm. So what I saw is that it's actually they call them Insta poets, and I think the
Okay.
most famous one I remembered her name, Rupi Kaur.
Right, right.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
the one who's been widely recognized
sure.
for using it. So it's a very interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do people find you or know about your gigs or books? How can
Yeah.
they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the best way to do that is going to virusthepoet.com. That's where I have a lot of my poems. I have links to different presentations or gigs, and of course you can buy the book, excuse me, as well as merchandise there. But you can also find me on all social media platforms, whether that's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. Pretty much anywhere that you absorb information.
That sounds great. Thank you very much, Virus the Poet, for me today. And I wish you the best of luck and keep writing. And for anyone who's listening or watching, thank you for joining us for another episode of Read and Write with Natasha. And until we meet again.